There was a magic in the glass, a kind of magic they just don't make anymore. It wasn't in the toys, not really. It was in the waiting. The long, breathless wait, standing on that cold sidewalk, your mittens pressed against the frosty glass, staring into a world of pure, unadulterated wonder. It was a department store window at Christmas time, and for a kid in the 1950s, it was the doorway to every dream you ever had. I can still feel the scratch of my wool coat, smell the faint scent of my father's pipe tobacco mingling with the cold winter air, and hear the quiet, awestruck hush of the crowd gathered there with us. We weren't just looking at dolls and train sets. We were looking at hope. We were looking at joy, all lit up and perfect behind a pane of glass. And every year, my eyes would always find the same thing, the magnificent, impossible electric train. Its little puffing smokestack, its tiny, braid headlight cutting through a painted cardboard tunnel, the way it tirelessly, faithfully, looped around and around that tiny, perfect world. I wanted it more than anything. But we didn't have the money for such things. That train lived in the window, and I lived on the other side of the glass. My father would see my longing, my nose practically glued to the frosty pane. He'd put a heavy, warm hand on my shoulder and say, "That's a fine sight, son. A fine sight." And that was that. We'd walk away, the sound of the Salvation Army bell fading behind us, the memory of that train already beginning to blur at the edges, stored away with all the other impossible wants of childhood. That was the ritual. Every year. The looking, the longing, the letting go. I thought that was the whole story. I carried that memory with me for a lifetime, a sweet, small, bittersweet ache from a simpler time. A story I'd tell my own grandchildren about the magic of those old store windows, about learning that some dreams just aren't meant to be caught. I told that story for decades. I believed that story for decades. Until this morning. This morning, my wife was up in the attic, determined to finally tackle the chaos we'd accumulated over 50 years of marriage. She called up to me, her voice muffled by insulation and memory. "John, there's a box up here I've never seen. It's taped shut. It's got your father's handwriting on it. My father had been gone for 30 years. A box. From him." I climbed the pull-down ladder, my knees protesting, my heart doing something else entirely. There it was. A simple, old cardboard box, the kind a ream of paper came in. And on the side, in his precise, familiar cursive, it said, "For the boy. Christmas 1957. Christmas 1957. The year of the train. The year of the deepest want." My hands trembled as I carried it down into the light of the living room. I sliced the brittle, yellowed tape with my pocket knife, the sound echoing in the silent room. I pulled back the flaps, and the smell that wafted out was a physical blow. It was the smell of him. Of his workshop, of sawdust and pipe tobacco and old wool. And there, nestled in yellowed newspaper, was not a toy train. It was a book. The Sears Christmas Wish Book. The 1957 edition. The cover was faded, but I knew it instantly. The Jolly Santa, the bright red sleigh. I must have flipped through this very book 1,000 times, my grubby fingers tracing the outlines of every toy, circling my desires in invisible ink. My throat tightened. Why would he save this? Why would he label it, for me? I lifted it out, its spine cracking softly. It felt sacred. I sat in my armchair, the winter light weak through the window, and I began to slowly turn the pages. There were the dolls with their vacant porcelain stares, the cowboy outfits with their fringed chaps, the board games and the chemistry sets. And then, I found the page. The train set. The very one from the window. The Lionel Chesapeake. And there, next to it, in the margin, was a tiny, precise checkmark from my father's pen. And the number. A price, written down and then circled. He'd been pricing it out. My heart hammered against my ribs. He had considered it. He'd thought about it, seriously. The ache of that childhood longing, a feeling I thought I'd long since buried, came rushing back, fresh and sharp. I kept turning pages, my vision blurring, lost in a sea of what-ifs and a newfound, confusing grief for a gift I never received. I was about to close the book, overwhelmed by this strange, delayed sense of loss, when a corner of a paper, tucked deep into the binding near the back, caught my eye. It was different, thinner than the catalog pages. A letter. I carefully worked it free. It was a piece of my father's stationery from the factory where he worked as a foreman. And it was addressed to me. My breath caught in my throat. "My dearest boy," it began. His handwriting was less steady here, the lines wavering as if written in great emotion. "If you are reading this, then you are finally old enough to understand. I saw you today, your face pressed against the glass of the department store. I saw the want in your eyes for that train. And it near about broke me in two. I had to stop. I had to put the letter down, to try and steady the earthquake happening inside my chest. My father, my stoic, quiet father, had written this. He'd felt that. He'd seen me. I picked it up again, my hands shaking so badly the paper rattled. I went into that store the very next day," the letter continued. "I walked right past those sparkling windows and found the toy department. I asked the man in the bow tie about the train. He told me the price. And son, it was more than I made in a week. I stood there for a long time, just looking at that box. I pictured your face on Christmas morning. The joy. The surprise. I would have given anything to see it." A single, hot tear traced a path down my cheek and landed on the paper, blurring the ink of his words. "I never knew. I never had any idea. I had the money in my pocket," he wrote. "I had it right there. It was for the electric bill. For the groceries. For the new winter coat your mother needed so badly. I stood there with that money in my hand, weighing a week of light and food and warmth against the light in my son's eyes. And I have never, ever, felt like more of a failure." The word failure was written with such force the pen had nearly torn through the page. I sobbed. A raw, ugly sound in the quiet room. My father, my hero, thought he was a failure. Because he couldn't buy me a train. I walked out of that store, the letter went on. I walked out and I got in the car and I cried. I cried for you. I cried for me. I cried for a world that puts impossible dreams in a child's eyes and then tells a man he can't provide them. I drove home that night, and the Christmas lights in all the windows just seemed to mock me. I could see him. I could see him so clearly now, not just as my father, but as a man. A man carrying the immense, silent weight of providing for his family. A weight I now knew I had only added to with my innocent, longing gaze. But then I got home, the letter said, the handwriting becoming steadier, firmer. And I saw you. You came running to the door, not to ask for a train, but to show me a picture you'd drawn in school. A picture of our family. And you were so proud. So happy. Just to see me. And I realized something then, son. I realized the train, the magic. It wasn't in the store window. It wasn't in that expensive box. The magic was already here. It was in this house. It was in your laugh. It was in your mother's smile. It was in us. I couldn't give you the train. But I could give you my time. I could give you my attention. I could give you my love. And that, I decided, would be my gift to you. every single day. I was weeping openly now, the letter clutched in my hands. All those memories rushed back, not of the toy I didn't get, but of the father I did. The father who spent that Christmas afternoon with me on the floor, not with an electric train, but with a second-hand set of wooden blocks, building the most magnificent, rickety tower the world had ever seen. The father who taught me how to whittle, who read to me at night, who listened. He'd given me everything. And I'd spent 60 years remembering the lack of a single thing. The letter's final paragraph was the quietest, the most profound. I am writing this down and hiding it away because I need you to know the truth. I need you to know that being your father was the greatest privilege of my life. And I need you to know that the greatest gifts, the ones that truly last a lifetime, are never found in a store. They are found in the heart. They are the gifts we give of ourselves. I love you, son. Always. Dad. I sat there for a long, long time. The old man in the chair, holding the voice of his young father from a lifetime ago. The memory of the department store window, it hadn't faded. But it had changed. The magic wasn't in the glass, it was in the heavy, warm hand on my shoulder. It wasn't in the train's endless loop, it was in the man who chose to get off the treadmill of want, and simply be with me. The twist wasn't that he'd bought the train after all. The twist was that he'd given me something infinitely more valuable. And I finally understood the price he paid to do it. The magic was in the letting go.